Has your blind daughter ever been in trouble? So I'm standing on the other side of the metal detector watching a TSA officer hold my daughter's folded white cane up in the air, just out of her reach, while she stands frozen with one hand stretched into nothing. Nadia is 16, and she is blind. The cane is how she sees the floor in front of her, and a man named Officer Pell has decided it is a weapon. They have pulled a blind teenager out of the line and taken the stick she uses to walk, because a hollow aluminum pole that folds into a bundle the size of a sandwich is, in his professional opinion, a danger to the whole plane. To understand how she ended up shut inside a glass box at the checkpoint holding nothing but air, you have to go back about 10 minutes. We fly twice a year to see Nadia's grandparents, and we have done it since she was small, so we know the routine better than most of the people in that line. She folds her cane, sets it in the bin with her shoes, walks through when the officer tells her to, and picks it back up on the other side. The cane is white, 4 hollow segments held by an elastic cord, the weight of a banana. The tip is a little roller that drags along the ground so she can feel the floor change before she reaches a step. She has had some version of it since she was 4 years old. Her first cane was a child-sized practice version made from light plastic, and she dropped it more times than anyone could count, before she learned the rhythm of swinging it in front of her with each step. By the time she was 9, she could move through a crowded room faster than I could. She has a long cane for sidewalks and the folding one for travel, and she knows the weight and balance of both the way I know the weight of my own keys. That morning, everything went the way it always does, right up until the cane slid out of the scanner and stopped in front of Officer Pell. Pell was working the bin end of the belt, the kind of man who treated his 8 feet of conveyor like a border he had been personally trusted to defend. He had already made the traveler ahead of us throw out a full water bottle while explaining the rules slowly, the way you explain things to a child. When Nadia's cane reached him, he picked it up, turned it over a few times, and set it on the table behind him instead of back in her bin. I asked for it back. Pell did not hand it over. This is a rigid object. It could be used as a weapon. I told him it was a mobility cane and that my daughter was blind. He glanced at Nadia, who was standing exactly where the machine had left her because she had no way to see where to go, and he shrugged. She seems to be doing fine to me. Nadia turned her face toward his voice and told him very calmly that she was standing still on purpose because someone had just taken her cane. Pell ignored her. He told me that anyone could claim to be blind to walk a baton through security, that he had seen every trick there was, and that if she truly needed help, she could request a wheelchair and an escort like everybody else. I said she did not need a wheelchair. She needed the thing he was holding. He slid it further back on the table. By now, the whole line behind us had stopped moving, and a dozen travelers were watching a uniformed man keep a folded stick away from a blind 16-year-old. Pell felt them watching and did what men like that always do, which is get bigger. He told Nadia to step into the glass holding area off to the side, and when she did not move, because of course she could not, he took her by the elbow and steered her in himself. Then he turned to me and warned that if I kept arguing, he would have me removed from the checkpoint, and that I was teaching my daughter not to respect security. My blind daughter was now shut inside a glass box, holding nothing, turning her head toward every sound, while the man who put her there lectured me about respect. I stopped arguing with Pell and said, loud enough to carry down the line, that I wanted his supervisor at the lane right now. The supervisor came faster than I expected. A woman named Ramos in a different color shirt with the tired face of someone who spends all day fixing other people's messes. She took one look at the white cane on the table and one look at the girl behind the glass and asked Pell what the situation was. Pell told her he had detained a passenger carrying a rigid object that could be used as a weapon. I picked the cane up off the table before he could stop me, snapped it open with one flick so the 4 little tubes locked into a straight line, then folded it right back into a bundle and laid it flat across my open hand. This is the weapon, I said. It is a hollow tube that tells my daughter where the floor is. Ramos did not even let Pell answer. She told him that mobility aids, white canes included, are allowed through security, that this is written plainly in the rules he is paid to know, and that a passenger using one is not a passenger, he gets to lock in a box. Pell still would not let it go. It is rigid. Policy gives me discretion. Ramos told him, clearly and without raising her voice, to return the cane to the passenger immediately. For a second I thought that would be the end of it, but Pell put one hand flat on the table next to the cane and said, I want to call my union representative before any action is taken against me. Until I talk to my rep, that cane stays here as evidence that I followed procedure. He said it like he had rehearsed it, like he had been through this before and knew the exact words that would slow everything down. I looked at Ramos and waited for her to just pick the cane up and give it to me. She outranked him. She had just told him he was wrong, but Ramos did not reach for the cane. She stepped closer to me and said quietly, I cannot physically take the cane from his station without following a process. There are steps I have to go through. Please be patient and let me make a call. I wanted to scream. My phone said our boarding window opened in 17 minutes. I did the math without wanting to. 17 minutes to get the cane back, get our bags, put our shoes on, walk 3 terminals to gate B17, and load Nadia onto a plane she had been excited about for weeks because her grandfather was going to meet us with the same paper cup of hot chocolate he always brought, the one he started bringing when she was 6. None of that was going to happen if Pell kept the cane in his hand for another 5 minutes. Ramos was telling me she had the authority to fix this, but not the freedom to do it fast. And the difference between those two things was everything when your daughter was standing in a glass box, and your boarding time was getting closer by the minute. I turned and looked through the glass at Nadia. She was standing exactly where Pell had put her, perfectly still, her hands at her sides, her chin raised just a little. I know that posture. I have seen it at school assemblies when a kid says something cruel about her under his breath, and at restaurants when a waiter talks past her like she is not at the table. It is the posture she uses when she is trying very hard not to cry where people can see. Then Nadia spoke. Her voice came through the glass thin and steady, the kind of steady that takes work. Mom, is someone going to give me my cane back, or do I just stand here until the plane leaves? It hit me right in the chest. Not because she sounded scared, but because she sounded tired. Tired of being patient for a man who did not deserve her patience. Tired in a way that a 16-year-old should not have to be in an airport on a Tuesday morning. Pell heard her. He turned toward the glass holding area and walked a few steps closer. He spoke to her the way I have heard people speak to Nadia her whole life. The way people talk when they think blindness means something is wrong with your brain. Slow, loud. Miss, no one is punishing you. I am doing my job. If your mother had cooperated from the start, this would already be over. He said it like he was being kind, like he was the reasonable one. My hands started shaking from the effort it took to keep my voice inside my body. I pressed my nails into my palms and kept my mouth shut. Then a voice came from the line behind us. A woman, maybe 5 or 6 travelers back, spoke up loud enough for the whole lane to hear. I have been watching this whole thing and this is wrong. That girl is blind and you took her cane. Everyone here can see what is happening. For 1 second the air felt different. different. But Pell did not miss a beat. He pointed at the woman, a hard finger aimed right at her face, and said, "Ma'am, you need to stay in your lane. You are not part of this. Keep it up, and you will be next." The woman closed her mouth. She looked down at her shoes and did not look back up. The line stayed frozen. Nobody else said a word. In that silence, I understood something that made my whole plan change. Waiting for Ramos to fix this through proper channels was not going to work. Every minute Pell stalled was a minute closer to our boarding time, and if we missed that flight, there would be no consequence for him. We would be gone. The cane would go back in lost and found, or wherever he planned to put it. There would be no record that any of this happened. No paper trail, no complaint on file, just a man at a conveyor belt who would do the same thing to the next person who could not fight back. I turned to Ramos, who had her phone in her hand and was about to step away to make her call, and I said it calmly. "I want to file a formal complaint. Right now. Not later. Not by phone. Not by email. Right here at this checkpoint before we leave this area. I want the complaint to include the full name and badge number of the officer who physically took a blind minor by the arm, moved her into a holding area, and confiscated a mobility aid that is permitted under federal guidelines. I want that on record before I take one step toward my gate." Ramos stopped. She looked at me, and I could see her measuring how serious I was, whether I meant every word. I meant every word, and she could see it. Then she nodded, slowly, like she had made her choice. "I can do that," she said. "Stay right here." Ramos walked away toward a desk near the back wall, and the second she was out of earshot, I pulled my phone out of my pocket. I did not open the camera. I did not hit record. I opened the notes app and started typing everything that had happened, in order, from the moment Pell picked the cane up off the belt. I have learned the hard way that details disappear once you leave the moment, so I typed fast. I put down the time we got to the checkpoint. I put down the time Pell took the cane. I looked up at his badge and typed his name, P-E-L-L, exactly how it was printed. I found the small metal plate on the side of the lane and typed the lane number. Every fact I could pin down, I pinned down. Pell noticed. He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the hand sanitizer on his skin. "You can't record in a federal security area." I did not look up. "I'm writing notes," I said. "That is not recording. Writing is not against any rule you enforce." He knew it, and I knew it. After a few seconds, he stepped back to his spot by the conveyor belt, but I could see his jaw working, the muscles bunching and releasing. His right hand drifted to the radio clipped to his belt, and his fingers kept tapping against it, not pressing the button, just touching it over and over. Then Nadia's voice came through the glass again. "Mom, how long have I been in here?" I checked the time. "Almost 12 minutes, baby," I said. There was a pause, and then Nadia said, in a voice that was perfectly clear and perfectly flat, "12 minutes. I have been standing in a glass box for 12 minutes because a man thinks my cane is a sword." A few people in the line let out short, uncomfortable laughs, the kind that come out before you can stop them. Pell's face went red, not pink, red, starting at his neck and climbing past his ears. He looked for a moment like a man who had walked into a room expecting applause, and found instead a room full of people who had been counting his mistakes. The travelers behind us were not laughing anymore, but they were not looking away either. They were watching him the way you watch a man learn something in public that he should have learned a long time ago in private. A couple of minutes later, Ramos came back carrying a tablet with a form already pulled up on the screen. "You can file the complaint right here. It is digital. You fill it out, you submit it, and it goes directly into the system. You will get a case number the second it processes." I took the tablet. The form had fields for the date, the location, the officer's name, badge number, a description of what happened. It was not a suggestion box. It was an actual formal complaint that would go into an actual system and have an actual number attached to it. I was about to start filling it in when Ramos said something else. She said it quietly, leaning in just enough that Pell, who was 10 feet away pretending to organize bins, would not hear. "I also want you to know that this is not the first complaint about this officer. You are not the first person to stand where you are standing." She did not say anything after that. I felt the weight of that sentence settle into me. This had happened before. Other people had stood right here and they had been angry and they had been right, and they had probably filed their complaints and walked to their gates and flown away, and nothing changed. Pell was still here. Pell was still working this lane. I decided right there, with the tablet in my hands and the form glowing on the screen, that this time was going to be different. I was not going to give this form a single gap that someone could use to make it go away. I looked at Ramos. "I want this complaint to be as detailed as possible. Every single thing he did, in order, with times. And I want a copy sent to my email before I leave this checkpoint." I typed my email into the field at the top of the form and started writing. I was 3 sentences into the description when Pell stepped away from his spot by the conveyor belt. He was not walking toward me. He was not walking toward Ramos. He was walking toward the glass holding area where Nadia was standing. My thumb stopped moving. He reached the door, pulled it open, and stepped halfway inside. His voice was so different from anything I had heard come out of his mouth in the last 20 minutes that it froze me where I stood. It was soft. It was almost friendly. "Hey," he said, talking right to Nadia, right to my daughter who was still standing there with her hands at her sides and her chin up. "I want you to know I was not trying to be mean to you. I was just following the rules. You understand that, right? I was just doing my job. I could not move. I understood exactly what he was doing. He was not apologizing. He was trying to get my blind 16-year-old daughter to tell him it was okay. He was trying to get her to give him something he could point to later and say, 'See, even the girl was fine with it.' He was looking for a way out, and he was trying to use Nadia as the door." Nadia turned her face toward his voice. She was quiet for a moment, then she spoke. "You took my cane," she said. Her voice was level, not angry, not shaking, not raised. "You grabbed my arm and put me in this room. You told my mom I was fine when I could not see where I was." She paused. "Which part of that was for my safety?" Pell did not answer. He stood in the doorway of that glass room with his mouth open just a little, like the response he had ready did not fit the question she had asked. He tried again. "I treat everyone the same. I do not give special treatment. That is what fair looks like." Nadia's response came so fast it was like she had been waiting for those exact words. Fair would have been asking me what the cane was for. Fair would have been reading the little card I carry in my pocket that explains it. She reached down and tapped the front pocket of her jeans, the pocket where I know she keeps a small laminated card that says, in plain print, that she is visually impaired and that her white cane is a mobility aid. She has carried that card since she was 11. "You did not ask me anything. You just took it." The checkpoint was so quiet I could hear the conveyor belt humming behind me. Every single person within earshot was listening to a blind teenager explain the meaning of fairness to a grown man in a uniform, and not one of them needed to be told whose side they were on. Pell stepped backward out of the holding area. 1 step, then 2. He looked at Ramos. He looked at me. He looked at the line of travelers. All those faces that had been watching this whole time. The same faces that had gone quiet when he pointed at the woman. For the first time since he had picked up that cane, I saw something change in his face. It was the look of a man who had just realized, fully and completely, that he had made a very bad mistake, and that every single person around him already knew it. He turned to Ramos and said, "I want it on the record that I I followed procedure as I understood it. That was his last move. Just a man trying to build a wall out of the word procedure, so that when everything fell on him, there would be something between his name and the consequences. Ramos looked at him. She did not blink. Your understanding was wrong, Pell, she said. Her voice was flat. And it has been wrong before. She turned away from him, walked to the table where the cane had been sitting, and picked it up. She carried it across the floor, past Pell, who stood there watching her with his arms at his sides, and nothing left to say. She walked right up to the open door of the glass holding area and placed the cane directly into Nadia's hand. Nadia's fingers closed around it the second she felt it touch her palm. Her shoulders, which had been up near her ears for the last 15 minutes, dropped. She shifted the cane to her right hand, and with one quick practice snap, she unfolded it, all 4 segments locking into a straight line with a click I could hear from where I was standing. She tapped it once on the floor, and she was herself again. I looked back down at the tablet and finished what I had started. I typed every single thing, from the moment Pell lifted the cane off the belt, to the moment Ramos put it back in Nadia's hand. I put down the times, I put down the lane number, I put down what he said to Nadia when he steered her into the holding area, and I put down what he said when he came back to try to get her to tell him it was okay. I read through the whole thing once, fixed a typo, and hit submit. The screen changed and a case number popped up at the top, a long string of letters and numbers. Ramos leaned over, checked the screen, and nodded. Case number is confirmed. A copy has been sent to your email. I pulled out my phone and opened my email, and there it was, sitting at the top. The subject line had the case number right there in plain text. Then Ramos turned to Pell. She did not lower her voice. You are off this lane for the rest of the day. Report to the back office, right now. Pell's mouth opened, but Ramos did not give him the chance. This is not a discussion. Go now. Her voice was not loud. It did not need to be. He reached down and pulled his blue gloves off, one finger at a time, and set them on the edge of the conveyor belt. He started walking toward the hallway at the back of the checkpoint. Then he stopped. He turned around one last time and looked right at me. I hope you feel good about yourself. I was trying to keep people safe. I looked at him and said, you locked a blind child in a glass box and took away the only thing that lets her walk. That is not safety. That is cruelty. And you knew it. He stood there for 2 seconds. Then he turned and walked away down that hallway, and he did not look back. Ramos watched him go. She turned to me. I am sorry this happened to your daughter. This complaint will be reviewed. I cannot tell you what the outcome will be, but I can tell you it will not be ignored. I nodded. I did not need her to make me a promise she could not keep. Nadia stepped out of the holding area with her cane sweeping the floor ahead of her, left to right, the little roller at the tip reading the ground. She walked straight to my side without help. We gathered our things from the bins. As I was zipping my bag, the woman from the line stopped beside us. She did not make a speech. She just looked at Nadia and said quietly, your daughter handled that better than any adult I have ever seen. Nadia turned her face toward the woman's voice and smiled, just barely. The kind of smile that means she is tired and she is done, but she is okay. We made the flight with 8 minutes to spare. Nadia took the window seat. She folded the cane and tucked it between her knee and the armrest. We were halfway through the flight when she turned her face toward me and said, Mom, next time, I want to be the one who asks for the supervisor. I did not hesitate. Next time, you will be, I told her. When we landed, Herbert and Elle were waiting at the curb. Elle hugged Nadia first and told her she looked taller. Nobody mentioned the checkpoint. That night, after Nadia fell asleep on the couch with her cane lying across her lap, I sat at the dining table and pulled up the confirmation email one more time. The case number was real. The record existed.